growth really drives value in the long run, and if you can deliver growth through resource growth and production growth together, which I believe we can, then that's sort of like the secret sauce to a great mining company to invest in.
Welcome, everyone, to StockPulse's Inside the Markets Extra. We are more than honored to be sitting down today with David Stein, President and CEO of Kuya Silver. Thank you for joining us, David.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me.
So what's new?
Well, actually, quite a bit. We have been ramping up our activities at our flagship Bethania mine operation in Peru lately. We've actually put out some news about that recently, and we also were able to finally acquire some really critical land around the mine as well. That was we had staked quite some time ago, but and then went to an auction process, and we won most of the blocks that we had applied for in the auction. So we've sort of we started to sort of ramp up our phase two exploration at Bethania. At the same time, we've acquired more ground, so the project's getting bigger. And this is all happening while we're also moving the mine forward to restarting production as well for next year. So there's been a lot going on.
And that mine is in Peru. Can you tell us about the region of Peru as a mining epicenter on the planet and what benefits it brings to the table?
Sure. Well, it's one of the biggest metal producers for a number of commodities, and mining is a huge part of their GDP and their culture there. So from that perspective, mining in Peru is a great place to be. They've got pretty comprehensive laws, and so you're not really breaking any new ground like if you're going to some other countries out there. It's got a well-established, mining workforce culture. Big companies are there, small companies are there. You sort of have the whole gamut of the industry there represented as well, which I personally find is quite reassuring. So overall, it's a great place to be. Certainly, I'm a longer term thinker, and I think Peru is going to be a good place to be for a long time. It's definitely had some very recent political challenges this year in 2021 specifically. However, I think if you run your project well, you can really sort of mitigate those risks, and that's what we've been able to do. So quite like working there. Um, it's also kind of handy to be in the Americas from a time zone workflow perspective. We can I basically speak with my team there in real time, all the same working day as us, more or less. And I find that a huge advantage. I've personally had investments in Africa, Asia, Australia, etc. And working in the Americas is so much easier, and it's a pleasure, really. So it's been really good.
Before we get into the future of Peru and why you think it's going to be a good place to be, I'm curious a little bit about its history. Is there anything that stands out to you about the history of mining in Peru, or perhaps even just regulation that people should know?
Well, mining, it's got a lot of similarities to Mexico. It's a smaller country, and fewer people, but the mining was basically started really by when the Spanish came, and the Spanish explorers came several hundred years ago, and it's really just sort of continued and gotten bigger and bigger through the centuries. So, I mean, in Peru, they've had mining going on for decades. I would say, North American companies started investing in Peru in the 90s, and have largely been successful and there's been many discoveries made, many company builders in Peru. Um, I would say more recently there's been a bigger trend towards porphyry copper exploration there, which is not what we do at Kuya. Um, but it obviously those types of projects can be huge, billion-dollar projects, can grab a lot more headlines. whereas what we're doing with the high grade silver mining kind of remains under the radar, and we feel like we can go about doing it without a lot of impact. But it obviously for silver investors, it's a very big deal, and there's great opportunities there.
Why are you confident in Peru for the future?
Well, just I've been investing in mining for 20 plus years now, and I see, especially good mining jurisdictions, where there's a strong mining culture. They tend to be somewhat cyclical in terms of how they, how the politics go. And so you see that in Mexico. You even can see that in Canada and the United States, where once in a while there'll be a sort of a political move to throw up roadblocks to mining, and then people realize that it generates a lot of jobs in places where that are otherwise very difficult to generate any income or economic activity, and then mining becomes acceptable, if not popular again. So um, that's what makes me confident. When you have that underlying mining culture, and the people of the country really need it to succeed, and to see their lives improve, which I think is the case in Peru, then it's sort of just a matter of time before, even when things look bleak politically, it's just a matter of time before things start improving. And and so that's why, again, if you're thinking longer term, multi years, then you don't worry too much about the politics in the short term, as long as the company that you're investing in is managing things at the local level really well, which I believe we are.
And what does this bode for Kuya Silver in the long run?
Well, I think it bodes really well, because I think, in a sense, we may be able to take advantage of Peru being perhaps out of favor right now, to get opportunities, acquisitions, more cheaply. Um, a good example is that land auction that we just participated in. I mean, although we did have to put up some cash to acquire those properties that we acquired, the 22 new properties around our mine. But if Peru was the hottest place to explore on the planet, then we probably would have paid 4 or 5 times what we paid. So I think we, again, as a thinking long term, we can put our head down and accumulate assets, and good assets, and obviously silver assets are very hard to find. For silver investors, assets that produce mostly silver by revenue. So when you have one like we do, you obviously want to explore it, and maximize the value. And there may be other opportunities like that in Peru that we can take advantage of, because we've got a local team, a really good local team that knows how to operate there, and we do have that longer term time horizon.
What factor or how did the COVID-19 pandemic change the outlook either in Peru or at Kuya Silver or just in silver generally speaking?
Well, let me start with Peru. Look, I think it did affect the country in a number of really profound ways. First of all, they had very, very bad cases earlier this year, and a lot of death. Unfortunately, around, I would say, the height of the pandemic for Peru was probably April, May of this year. Um, so so that that I think Peru's still recovering from that. They have been pretty quick to bounce back, we've noticed. And although we obviously do now need to take new precautions, when we bring people up to site, and when we have people working together at the mine, but it's really just, I think, just going to come down to part of the health and safety plan going forward. We're just going to have to manage, COVID-19, just like we manage, other safety and security factors with our employees. So it will add a bit of a cost probably for the testing, extra tests, and all that kind of stuff. There will be a cost if people do get sick. If we do end up having an outbreak of a few people, then you've got to send them down and isolate them and replace them. So there may be a sort of an incremental cost to that. I don't think it will be major. I think that um, or anything sort of special over and above the inflation we're seeing in other parts of the industry. Um, but anyway, it's part of the equation. COVID-19 is part of it. In terms of how it's affected silver, kind of interesting because silver does have antimicrobial properties. And so you can sort of put it in things, whether it be clothing, towels, water bottles, etc., and it kills germs, kills fungus, bacteria, anything. So we may see a trend to more sort of consumer products that have more silver in them, because the health benefits there. And that's something that I think the industry's known about for a long time, but we haven't really seen it taken up by the public in a big way. And obviously, this, if people all become germaphobes now, then that will actually help silver in ironically. So we'll see. And then of course all the stimulus and stuff is contributing to the more monetary drive for silver, which is very similar to the fundamentals for gold. And I think we've seen that in the last year as well. We've seen some pretty decent moves in silver and gold, and expect more of the same in the near future here.
What else do people need to know about Kuya Silver heading into 2022 or at the close of 2021?
Well, I think what's really special about us is the fact that we have our flagship project, Bethania, is a mine that was recently shut down, and that we're making improvements to it to put it back into production, and we feel we can do that very quickly here. Um, so Kuya is a company that could be in production a lot sooner than most of our peers, and with a project that will we feel will be very profitable and will be a great silver producer one day, so, or very shortly. So we can work on that, essentially the restart project at the same time as exploring Bethania and making it bigger. So there's really two prongs to our business strategy. We want to get into production as quickly as possible. We also want to make Bethania a bigger and better project, ultimately to justify a further expansion of the mill that we're planning on building next year. Um, so I think at the end of the day, if I go back to my earlier career as an investment analyst and professional uh, investor, um, growth really drives value in the long run. And if you can deliver growth through resource growth and production growth together, which I believe we can, then that's sort of like the secret sauce to a great mining company to invest in. So that's really what we're looking to do. And then we do have a second project in Ontario, Canada. It's a few years behind Bethania. It's an earlier stage project, but we do feel it will slot in as a producer, a few years after Bethania. And you'll hear about us continuing to work on that project as we move forward as well.
We've had the honor today of sitting down with David Stein, President and CEO of Kuya Silver. Thank you so much, David, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.